Hi, church. Hey, just thank you for joining us today. It's our last installment of Psalm 103. I hope you enjoyed the last couple. If you haven't, kind of retrace your steps from this video and look at the part one and part two. We encouraged everybody that was checking out these videos to read the Psalm. If you haven't had a chance to do that, I really encourage you to do that. It'll add a lot of context to what we're talking about today. We're going to take verse 14 and following from Psalm 103. We're going to be looking again at the ESV, English Standard Version, if you want to follow along. Verse 14 of chapter 103, "For he knows our frame, he remembers that we are but dust. As for man, his days are like grass. He flourishes like a flower of the field. For the wind passes over it and it's gone, and its place remembers it no more. But the steadfast love of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting on those who fear him, and his righteousness to his children's children, to those who keep his covenant and remember to do his commandments. The Lord has established his throne in the heavens, and his kingdom rules over all." First is this beautiful thought that he knows you. The ESV chooses to say, he knows your frame. Well, that's kind of interesting. If you think of a car, or I've driven buses a lot, and they have these wide frames, and unless it's built right, boy, everything above it's not very good. So the thought that he knows the foundation of who I am is amazing. So that's the first thing we know about God, is he knows my frame. He knows me better than anybody else does. In fact, I like the phrase that he knew me in my mama's womb. He knew exactly who I was. Secondly, even though my days are numbered, it talks about this kind of a thought that we're but a mist that appears for a while and then vanishes. In the valley here, we get lots of days of fog, and it's amazing. You can be socked in for a long time. In fact, when the fires came through the valley, I recall we had fog and fire, and I was taken off in the morning one time. I couldn't see anything, even with lights on, the density of that. But this thought is, you're just a mist that appears for a while and then vanishes. God is absolutely in contrast to that statement. Even though our time here on earth is fleeting, perhaps it is quick, that's in contrast to the great steadfast love that he has for us, because it's everlasting. It's forever. To get a grasp of that, I remember this illustration years and years ago from a missionary. He came to church, and I'm in a place I was serving, and he brought out a ball of twine. And what he did was he extended this, he made a line, and he extended it as far as he could in the auditorium from left to right. And he talked about this being time as we know it, from the beginning of it to the end. And it really didn't have a mark on either end. It was everlasting. So the line could be, forever. And what he did is he put a couple sticky notes in the middle of this timeline. And he said, "This is your life," and it was really close together. And the picture of it was that, man, our time in this everlasting continuum is very small. Yet God has a grasp on this kind of time. It's everlasting. A day to God is like 1,000 years. Get a grasp of that. Only God can have that kind of time frame. So folks, he knows this kind of love. Only him. And that again is his distinctive. The last thought here is the psalmist declares that God is all powerful. His kingdom rules over all. He kind of wraps it up to make mention of that. Do you have doubts in your life? Perhaps you're just clinging on to your faith, or are you struggling with your faith? Have you placed your whole heart, your whole life in God's hands? Because he rules, and he rules anyway. Whether we put our hearts and minds and our strength with him or not, he still rules. And the psalmist, David, wanted to remind his readers of that God rules anyway. You may as well submit to him. Folks, somebody may be driving or steering your boat, driving your car. Once we put someone else on our throne, God's not there anymore. So be mindful of that, church, and celebrate that he is in control. He rules anyway. Perhaps it's time to fully commit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Thanks for listening, church. We'll see you again soon.